to the Green Building and Sustainable Office panel. Once again, my name is Silvia Bushniakova, and I'm really delighted to welcome you here. Firstly, let me introduce the moderator or facilitator, if you wish, Mr. Jan Lehký from Kinsteller. A short introduction. Jan Lehký is a counsel in the Prague office, specializing in the real estate sector, in particular real estate property transactions, leases, construction, and environmental law. Jan has also gained extensive experience in arbitration and employment and energy law. So, Mr. Lehký, welcome and thank you for being with us here. The virtual stage is yours.
Thank you, Sylvia. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Because Sylvia said everything about me, I can skip entire article about that. I would just like to mention that I'm also active in Green Deal agenda, sustainability and environmental issues. I'm honored to welcome you at this panel, which is dedicated to Green Building and Sustainable Office, which is taking place at today's Green Growth Conference. And I will now introduce you to our panelists who are actually willing to provide you and happy to provide you and to share with you their valuable experience in the field of sustainable industry. They represent, without any exaggeration, the cream of the crop of the green building sector. Firstly, I will start with Daniel Rubricius, who is head of facilities management in the buildings department at ČSOB. I hope that Daniel will share with us his experience with ČSOB headquarters in Radlice, which was actually the first certified building at our market. We will follow with Pavel Streblov, who is business director of commercial real estate at Penta Real Estate. And I believe that Pavel will offer us some details about Masarykovo nádraží building office, which is a long-awaited pier to be yet constructed at the Prague city center. And finally, Pavel Sovička, who is managing director at Panattoni Development Company. And Pavel will seek to demonstrate that a sustainable approach can also be applied in industrial buildings. Now, it could be asked whether the issue of sustainability really has any relation to our buildings. Moreover, it could be asked whether any green trends or any green certification is really needed. So we can all wonder whether we really need to change the way how we build our houses, offices, and warehouses, provided that the past approaches have been successfully applied for centuries. Well, let's examine some hard data. Buildings are responsible for 40% of energy consumption in the EU market. Comparing to the industry sector, which accounts only for 20%, or entire transportation sector, which accounts for 25% only. Buildings emit 36% of greenhouse gas emissions, and 75% of current building stock is energy inefficient. These and other factors led the EU Commission to include the building issue within the Green Deal panel or Green Deal agenda, and to come up with programs such as the renovation wave, which should invest and which should lead to renovation and modernization and retrofitting of our buildings. So to reach the climate neutrality target by 2050. By then, the buildings should be, or the greenhouse gas emissions from buildings should be decreased by 60%. So hopefully in some time, we will live in healthier, cleaner, more resilient buildings. But not only, it's a great opportunity for business because it could be a great response to COVID-19 economic crisis. because it's expected that the modernization of buildings will generate up to, or will create up to 160,000 new jobs. Or it was already calculated that €1 invested in the modernization will generate additional €3 of the GDP. And I think it was enough for the introduction. And let's hear our participants and our panelists and their view and their experience. Please, Daniel Rubicius, floor is yours.
So, hello, thank you. I would like to thank the British Chamber of Commerce for inviting me to this conference and for giving me the opportunity to talk about ČSOB Group company sustainability approach and innovations. Green growth and sustainability are the pillars of our business strategy. ČSOB Group, you know, is one of the three largest providers of financial services in Czech Republic. Employs almost 8,000 employees, around almost 340 premises around the whole Czech Republic. Along with our clients, we are moving into the sustainable and digital world and towards greater flexibility as this our work environment. The first step came in the year 2007 when we built our first modern headquarters in Prague. Internally, we call it NHQ, North Headquarter. It was one of the most modern and ecological buildings in Central Europe at that time, and we received the LEED Gold Award as the first commercial building. Please, next slide. Thank you. Our goal was to create in 2007 a modern office building that would meet the strictest environmental standards with a design that is in harmony with the surrounding area and at the same time enables employees to enjoy a flexible working environment, combine work with relaxation and their personal lives. Our building used the best ecological technology and solutions available at that time, such as accurate system of air conditioning and shading systems, ideal building operation, improved building construction, highly efficient boilers, and so on and so on. But what we are the proudest of is our green roof or green roofs. The soil on the roof was designed in some place up to the height of 1.2 meters for planting nature trees. 16 years from now, you will be able to find a really park with oak, birch, olive trees and on our roof. Just have a look at that. Next slide, please. Thank you. Rainwater is collected in 2 tanks and underground, the larger of which is the size of a swimming pool with about 500 cubic meters and then used to water to roof garden. The second building, next slide please. The second building that we completed not long ago in 1219 called SHQ, South Headquarter. I don't like the expression new old building, and we use this expression South and North as headquarter. SHQ building meets the highest environmental standards in accordance with the international LEED Platinum certification. The heating and cooling solution is especially unique. It's the largest system of heat pumps in the Czech Republic, which consists of 177 boreholes with a depth of 150 meters and a total length of over 26 kilometers. The building is thus completely self-sufficient in terms of heating and cooling. What is more, it can store energy for later, so there is no need for a classic boiler room. Intense green roofs, a fleet of heat pumps, and the use of rainwater were bold solutions at the time against buildings becoming so-called heat islands. The interior of the buildings are designed to suit different ways of working and adapted to the requirements of our employees. Thus, people will find quiet places for focused work, teamwork zones, a training center, a secluded areas, safe for phone calls. Vegetation is seen as a matter of course. Please, next slide. On top of all that, we installed last EV charging station at the entrances and in our garages to be used for company cars, as well as for the use of the general public. SHQ won 3 or 4 weeks ago first place in the category of new administrative center, and above all won the award for the environmental project of the year 2020. Next slide, please. Obviously, all ČSOB buildings are certificate ISO 14001 environmental management and 5001 energetics management. The latter is also implemented in all our biggest premises around the Czech Republic. As a result of this system implementation, we do not only decrease our energy consumption, increase energy performance, but also invest in new technologies, for example, photovoltaic power plants on roofs in local area. Nowadays, we have 4 photovoltaic power plants. Next slide. I can reveal that the concept of modern ecological buildings proved itself to be efficient, and we plan new projects in other big cities around the Czech Republic. Our sustainable strategy is not only based on erecting buildings, but it's a continuous approach based on detailed measurement to improve our whole environmental performance. As one of the first banks in the Czech Republic, we started to measure our direct footprint. Every year, we measure our carbon footprint based on measurement on energy consumption, business and commuter travel, the use of paper, water consumption, waste production, and refrigerate leaks. Next slide, please. We reduced our carbon footprint by about 68% compared with year 2015 starting date, and increased the share of green energy to 90%. All data and results are being published in our annual reports for more details. To summarize, ecology is an integral part of our corporate DNA, and it's visible in every decision-making process, from designing new eco-banking products to purchasing new commodities, from the way we organize waste sorting in the office to how we drink coffee. Every single activity counts. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Daniel, for your presentation. I understand that if someone wants to work in a green and sustainable environment, he must apply for position at ČSOB. I will ask, or we will move to Pavel Streblov to share with us his presentation and information from Penta and from the hopefully Masarykovo nádraží office building, which is, as I said, awaited, and we all look forward to it. Please.
All right, so let's start again. Unmuted. Good afternoon. Thanks for the introduction. Before we jump into Masaryčka, I would like to give you a little bit of an overview of what we have done so far, and what's the learning curve on our side in terms of delivering sustainable and environmental friendly buildings. Looking back to 2012, we came to the market in Prague with our first project, Florentinum. And we already at that time decided to distinguish ourselves by focusing on sustainability. So it was one of the first two buildings in the Prague market that applied for the LEED Platinum certification, which is the highest level of green certification of offices. In comparison to ČEZ OB, it's a little bit more challenging being in commercial development to find a balance between the economic sustainability and environmental sustainability. Because if you have a single tenant building, it's you have everything under control, and you can basically force the operation to follow all the rules. What we do is commercial buildings for multiple tenants. So every tenant has different approach. So we always need to find a balance between the needs of the tenants and what we can force upon them in terms of sustainability. But in any case, this LEED Platinum was a key distinguishing factor for us. At that time, maybe if you can look at the next slide. At that time, the main focus of this certification was mostly about energy utilization, efficiency, reuse of energy, be it heat energy or elevator energy reuse and so on. But we have also tried to focus more on the tenant's experience. So things like equipment for cyclists, showers on not just in the basement, but on every floor, so that people have the comfort of easily coming to the office by bicycle and refreshing themselves before entering the office. So it was energy, one of the key factors. Let's say the way people use the building, and also in terms of energy, we were looking at how to reduce, for example, the energy usage for lighting. And this is one of the examples, maybe in the next slide, if you look at it. One of the key aspects of all office buildings is shading. So do we do external shading, internal shading only? How much do we invest into the, let's say, energy efficiency of the windows? And Florentinum for us was the only project where we introduced these external shades that you can see here on the right side. They have a great benefit of keeping the heat out of the building. On the other hand, they are quite demanding in terms of maintenance. And luckily, there was some progress in R&D. So for all the other buildings that we have delivered since then, we have decided to invest more into, let's say, the quality of the glass, the insulation of the glass, so that it's very heat resistant, but allows a lot of light to go into the premises, so that even without any external shading, you have a very good comfort within the buildings. And it was also one of the lessons that we learned in Florentinum, is that maybe some of the technical gadgets it might sound good on paper, but when you introduce them, you actually see that they are not so appreciated by people. So one of the things that we have, for example, is a light regulation, which allows you that automatically the light intensity in the office premises can adjust according to the light situation outside. which sounds great. So you're having your meeting, and when it gets darker outside, it automatically increases the intensity of light. So you're basically in the same light conditions all the time. The trouble becomes when you have a sunny but cloudy day, and as the clouds go across the sun, your intensity internally keeps adjusting, and people didn't like it. So that was one of the key lessons that we learned, that there is a limit to what people enjoy, and people like to have things under control to some extent. So one of the key lessons for us on Florentinum was, it's great to have a sustainable building. People appreciate a lot of the amenities, but there are limits in terms of control that people want to maintain, and in terms of what's also efficient. Introducing all these relatively expensive technologies into the building, do they really pay off, and how long do they last? How many programmers you need to maintain such a complicated operation. So if you go into our second project, which was Waltrovka on the next slide, this is a slightly different project from Florentinum by us redeveloping a whole industrial zone in Prague 5 of some 17 hectares. And in this project, we focused on green certification. Again, it has LEED Gold and some buildings LEED Platinum. But we have put a greater emphasis also on the surrounding areas. We have built a 2-hectare park, and the whole focus on this is like really the user experience of the whole site. Accessibility, landscaping, and so on. Maybe if you go to the next slide. And as part of the whole sustainable concept is also the way how you structure the different uses in the location. So we realized that we have much more fun in shaping greater parts of the city than just introducing single buildings into existing fabric. And it's more challenging at the same time. And Waltrovka was a great ground for us to really play with different uses. And we see that part of the sustainability and green element of the projects comes also from the fact that how it's being used by the occupiers. And so Waltrovka, it has some 80,000 square meters of GLA, but it also consists of 750 residential units. And it's very interesting to trying to find a balance, how it's being used by the local residents, at the same time by the office occupiers, how to make, let's say, the retail sustainable so that it can operate both during the working days for the office occupiers and during the weekends for the locals. Having all this experienced, we have designed the next project that you will see hopefully now on the slide, and that's a project that we call Masaryčka. It's right in the city center. You can see on the right side of the picture Florentinum, so it's right opposite Florentinum. This is a project where we have organized an architectural competition with the British-based architectural studio Zaha Hadid winning this concept. And we are trying to put together all the experience from the projects that I mentioned, but also other projects that we have. So it's a mixture of focusing on the operation of the building, and we have again a LEED Platinum pre-certification, similarly as in the case of Florentinum. One has to note that the LEED certification Platinum from 6 years ago has very different conditions to what it has now. So it's much stricter these days. So the building will hopefully be a new benchmark of efficiency of buildings in Prague. If I may ask on the next slide, one of the key positive aspects is that if you look at Florentinum, you see a gray roof. It wasn't our idea, but at that time when we were permitting the project, the Prague Heritage Protection Office was against green roofs in Prague, because they consider this not to be historically relevant for the city of Prague, and they insisted on the roofs not being green. Luckily, this has changed, and we have taken full advantage of it. And as you can see now, for the project of Zahadid, we are introducing, you know, as much greenery on the roof as possible. So it will hopefully have a bigger resemblance of what we see on top of Chess or by headquarters to what we see on some of the other buildings in the city center. As in the case of Otravka, we are not focusing just on the buildings themselves, but on the surroundings too. So as part of the project, we will, and in conjunction with the city, we will redevelop the street Na Florenzi. So here you can see the new green alley of trees, which will be introduced as part of the project development. And also on the other side of the building, a green park on top of the train station, which will be built by the Czech Railway Authority, but we will financially contribute to it as well. If I may ask for the next slide. Besides putting greenery on the roof, we're trying to put some additional greenery on the facade, which should improve the microclimate of the location. You know, we're fighting the heat island effect, but we also believe this will increase the comfort within the offices, that you know, you will not only have the great view of the city, but you will also be overlooking it with the greenery in front of you. And on the next slide, if I may ask, you know, this gives you a perspective that, you know, besides the building, and you can see the green park above the train station, as part of the redevelopment, we will be also changing the whole square. It's currently, it's not a square, it's a junction between Na Florenzi and Havlíčková, next to the historical building of the train station, where instead of some parking cars that we see there today, it should become a new public square. Next slide, please. And on this final slide, I want to demonstrate, you know, the street today, there is no greenery. What we are doing is extending the sidewalks. They should have more than 6 meters on each side. We're introducing greenery, we're introducing the roofs, the trees. And as a new concept for Prague, we're also discussing with the city of introducing some aspects of what we call the green-blue infrastructure for streets. So, you know, reuse of rainwater, not just as we do now, that, you know, we collect all the rainwater from the roofs of our buildings, but that we will be collecting the water also from the street and use it for watering of the greenery, of the extensive greenery that we see in the streets. So to sum it up, our lessons were try to find smart solutions, not overcomplicate it, and don't focus just on buildings themselves, but you know, try to implement this green aspect also to the broader micro location of the buildings that we develop.
Thank you, Pavel, for your presentation. Thank you also for revealing some new information about Masaryčka, and also for admitting some disadvantages, which means that not everything which is sustainable and efficient must be useful or user-friendly. And now moving to Pavel Sovička. Pavel, please tell us whether it really makes sense to make our factories greener.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Before we start the slides of the presentation, amazing presentations of the guys about their projects in the office sector. I must say that the industrial sector maybe joined as the last the green initiative and the sustainable approach. But maybe for the first consideration, the industrial properties which we build are generally used 16 to 24 hours a day. When we look at the utilization of retail, office, or residential, those properties are generally used for its use only 8 to 12 hours a day. So before introducing the green elements of the development, I believe that the industrial buildings were mainly utilized to the full, but they can be always improved. So that's what we are trying to do since 2013. And maybe we can go to the first slide. May we go for the next one?
I'm sorry, but for some reason it's not working. Yeah, let me just work on it a bit.
Let's see.
Yeah, we have it.
Perfect. Perfect. Thank you very much. I realized when I've seen the presentations before that the text might not be really clearly visible. I will try to run through the slides as quickly as possible so we have a chance to grab some time for the discussion. But Panasonic has got in the DNA also the environmental approach and sustainable approach to the development. And just in 2020, we have delivered to the European market more than 2.6 million square meters of certified buildings, according to BREEAM or DGNB. And we have achieved also outstanding levels, excellent levels, and DGNB Gold. So really, it's a European initiative. Maybe go for the next slide. CO2. I've seen the panels before in the afternoon, and I think it's a really theme not only for office developers, for the governments, but also for the industry. And we see a lot of push by our customers, by our investors, to seek the properties and improve their operations, that they are really zero negative, ideally, and contribute even some of the energy they produce into the grid. The first step for our portfolio is happening in Poland, where we have secured the contracts for the energy supply from the renewable resources. And that's coming to life on 3 million square meters in coming years. And that will be implemented throughout other countries as well. Maybe go for the next slide. We are really volume-driven developer. And this brings a lot of responsibility to the shoulders of our team to implement the developments and build the properties in the most sustainable way, which is sustainable not only, as Pavel mentioned, in a green way and environmental friendly way, but also economically viable. So really the volumes are pretty high. Just in Czech Republic, we have developed more than 1 million square meters of properties, where more than half of those were built according to the BREEAM standards, new construction. Yeah, next slide, please. The key role, I think, for industrial development and sustainability of the parks and properties is the recycling of the old areas which are not longer used for its original purpose. There are two examples here on this slide. On the left part, you see old Chebské strojírny, where we have developed a big brownfield site which was not used and utilized anymore, which was heavily contaminated, and it was turned into a modern e-commerce center with a lot of environmental features, and secured the BREEAM Outstanding High score in the world for industrial new construction. On the right-hand side, we see part of the Brno airport, which was former military barracks, not used anymore, in, I would say, devastated state. And we have prepared DHL depot, which is utilizing the closeness of the runway and are able to utilize the direct connection to the airport and to the Brno area. Maybe next slide. I would say that greenfield site development will not stop. It's impossible just to source all the properties from the brownfield opportunities. And these are examples which are being implemented for our greenfield site developments, where we try to give back to the nature features which are being pushed back by the agriculture. So we try to prepare really green surfaces, bushes, trees, and also prepare the habitats for the bugs, for the frogs, and prepare, I would say, natural habitat for the animals which are pushed out of the natural places by the expansion of the agriculture. Just for your information, the rainwater which is being absorbed in our parks is higher absorption than the former fields which were on that place, because we use the retention ponds to absorb the water into the environment, and we are not simply sending it into the river. So the absorption of our part of the water is higher than for the site which is used for the agriculture. And also the topsoil, where we hear a lot of complaints that we destroy the soil which is used for farming. Generally, the topsoil is removed, but then spread in the area into the farming areas which are hit by the erosion. So we help the farmers to get better soil and their farming. Next slide, please. As said, more than 500,000 square meters of BREEAM new construction certifications achieved just in the Czech Republic in our developments. We also had few buildings which were really trend-setting, not only for us, but for the whole market. It began in 2015 with the completion of Amazon Fulfillment Center close to Prague, where we have at that time secured the highest BREEAM new construction score for the industrial building in the world. Then we have followed in 2019 with Via Pharma, which have secured again highest BREEAM new construction score across all the sectors, real estate sectors in Central Europe. And finally, in 2020, we have secured BREEAM new construction outstanding highest score in the world for industrial buildings. And that was in the brownfield area of Lipské Strojírny. May I have? Yes. The trend is clear. When you look at the overview of the projects we have completed according to BREEAM certification, and we have certified those buildings, we are moving from very good, which was standard a few years ago, to excellent. We have developed 53% of the BREEAM certified buildings on the market in industrial sector. And most of the buildings which we are certifying are certified excellent. And we have few requirements now by our customers to deliver the buildings even to the level outstanding. So that's it from Panattoni. So I believe that we can show in real examples that the industrial is really turning green and sustainable. And we are looking forward to the questions. Thank you very much.
Great.
Thank you, Pavel, for your presentation. Now I can see that making factories green really makes sense. And I never thought that you can bring the nature to the places where it never has been. So very interesting. I've prepared several questions to you. I will maybe start with the question, what are the greatest obstacles to develop sustainable buildings? And as I know, Panattoni or Penta as well are doing or constructing their sustainable buildings on brownfields. Is it difficult here to develop the buildings on brownfield? Is the state, municipality, or region any helpful, or does it have any does it bring you any support? Or I would, if you can respond to in order as you have had your presentation, starting with Daniel, Pavel Streblov, and Pavel Sobička, please. if you just would like to start, Pavel Streblov, please go ahead.
Okay. I think when we look at our portfolio in Czech Republic, we basically have all our projects as brownfields. We don't do any out of the center development on greenfields. So, and there are not so many sites in the city center that would be greenfields. So effectively, Florentinum was a brownfield. All the train stations that we do are brownfields. Valtrovka is a prime example of a brownfield. So do we see any support? Not really. There was some support before we acquired Valtrovka because it was highly contaminated from the past, that it was, the cleanup was paid by the government even before we acquired it. So there was, but it was more a part of a privatization process from the past rather than any new program that we would benefit from. As for the other brownfields, there is no specific support that we would use. On the other hand, we believe that especially the public sees this as a way forward. So for all the brownfields that we have, we perceive that there is a broader public support for such projects in comparison to some greenfield developments. So I think it has this indirect positive effect for us. Obviously, there are some extra costs connected with that. On the other hand, you know, if you want to build within the city, yeah, this is the kind of structure that you have to work with. So it's slightly pricier, depends on what was historically the use of the site. But on the other hand, such locations benefit from good accessibility, benefit from the infrastructure being in place. So yeah, there are some extra costs, but I would say there are some extra benefits too. And yeah, we see this as a very sensible way of development.
Thank you. Pavel Sovička,
I can really compare really the situation with our neighbors or our markets where we operate, because we have one responsible person, environmental person for whole Europe, and we can really discuss and communicate the approaches of individual states and governments to the brownfield development. And to be honest, we see our government and Czech Invest and Ministry of Industrial and Trade figuring out how we can support, what subsidies do you need to develop the brownfields. I think it's just removing the obstacles which we have. And one of the biggest obstacles is the reuse and recycling of the construction waste on site. Because based on the Czech codes and norms, we should take anything, any debris, any parts of construction which we demolish to the landfill, which is really environmentally completely unfriendly, which is in contradiction what we see in Germany and what we see in the UK. Just simply recycle everything on the site to reuse it, not to transport it, save material, and whatever is not dangerous, leave on the site. At the moment in the Czech Republic, it's completely opposite. Whatever is treated as a waste, as a construction waste, take it out, put it into the landfill and pay for it. There's a clear lobby of the companies operating the landfills. Guys deposit everything here. They don't do anything with those. They are just simply depositing those in other area. So it can be reused for the construction. We were lucky, and in discussion with the authorities like Czech, we were very successful in discussing that in some areas, and the authorities were very open-minded and allowed us to recycle up to 90% in some cases. And that was awesome help. Just remove the obstacle. And we could really recycle in Chebské strojírny and in Karlovy Vary in Ostrov, we could recycle more than 90%. In Ostrov, it was 98% of the constructional waste recycled. But this is exception. This is down to the bravery of the local clerk to approve it, which is not like systematic approach. So that's one thing. The second thing, I think, compared to Pavel, we have completely different experience with the infrastructure and the zoning and master plan. Because the brownfields which we reuse are generally dead for 10, 15, 20 years. And the infrastructure capacities, which were reserved for those areas when there were thousands of people working, that was stolen. Basically, there's no reservation of the infrastructure capacities for that area, but that was used by other developers, other utilization of residential office developments by the city. So the capacities at the wastewater sewage plant, at the I would say water treatment, there's like really no reserve. In a lot of cases, like Kovošrod in Prague, we experience the situation that there's a traffic at its limits, and it's not caused by our development. It's basically just disregarding by all the permits and planners the former use of the site, and those capacities were given up to different developments which were happening in last 10 years. So really, we are facing the situation that anything we want to build, the authorities will tell you, but there's no capacity of traffic. But even we come back and say, guys, but there were coming 500 trucks a day. They say, we don't care. At the moment, there's no traffic capacity. So I think it's coming back to the zoning and master plan, which compared to the Western countries, we are really lagging behind. So these are two obstacles which can be removed, and we don't have to have any subsidies or support. Just remove the barriers which are blocking the development on the brownfields.
Maybe if I may add, I confirm the fact that, the existing use is not much taken into account. And, from one of our projects, it was used as a parking lot, and there was more cars allowed than the city was willing to allow us to have in the new development. And, this is kind of bizarre that, we asked for less than what was used at that moment. But anyway, the city insisted on a higher reduction, even if you utilize the space much more efficiently than having a parking lot there. So yeah, I agree. I mean, and the same for the planning authorities that, like changing the use. For example, for one of our projects, it's an industrial use. It's in a residential area. We're trying to change it into residential use. And the city is discussing how much money and what kind of concessions they would expect from us to change it. And we're saying, okay, the alternative for us is to build logistic here. Is that what you want? Definitely not, but we want to see some concessions. So yeah, there are situations where the authorities might not be very helpful. I fully agree.
Daniel, would you like to add something, or can we move to other questions?
We can move to other questions.
Perfect. I'm afraid that this approach of authorities will last for some time. The question is whether we have this time and whether we can afford as the entire country if we want to modernize. So let me ask one current question or current issue. Due to COVID-19 crisis or due to COVID-19 impact, have you changed your plan in terms of sustainability, bearing in mind that we maybe don't need offices any longer? Look at my back or behind me, there is a completely empty office. So what's your approach, or has it been any change of plans, please?
So maybe I start. COVID is a very difficult situation for everybody. We promoted home office even before COVID came in, and it has nothing against building new premises, as our main working policy was always flexibility. The flexibility is when people can choose where and how they work, so that it suits them and their work is most efficient. We want to enable employees to better reconcile their personal and professional lives. And maybe in these days, this year we are finishing ČSOB Group Region Back Office Center in Hradec Králové. with about 1,000 workplaces, and will be opened in September 2021. And idea of new building in Pardubice for ČSOB Pojišťovna gets real outlines. I think that working together, to have community place for meeting, cooperation, and mutual inspiration, everybody, each together, is nowadays the topic of these days, because home office, where you are alone, have children, have a lot of circumstances. What does it suit you? It's not possible to work the rest of our lives.
Perfect, thank you. We are running out of the time. So if you have something to add, or if you would like to something to add, please go ahead.
Okay, so maybe just quickly, obviously for us, it's a big concern how the offices will be used in the future. But similarly to what we have seen or heard from ČSOB, we believe that, with some additional flexibility in comparison to what we had 2 years ago, I think people would still prefer to meet in some place and work together. So we are now in a situation where we force people to stay home to some extent, and basically you have people now begging to come back to the office to relax from the kids and from, just to have the full focus on work. And I think this will not change. So we expect somewhat more flexibility to be required, maybe an increased use of some co-working and shared premises and so on. But in general, I think people still prefer to meet each other in person, and we just have to make sure that we are able to offer good value for money. So it might be that there will be slightly less space required, but there will be higher requirements because, let's say companies from 10,000 meters, they might use only 8,000, so they save some money. But then they maybe are willing to pay for some extra space, like in some better location, like our developments, downtowns, so that there is some extra value. I think there is no big extra value in going to an office somewhere like out of Zličín, excuse the specific example, but what do you get there sitting in an office out in the fields? Nothing. But if you can offer services, community, and all that, then we believe, that's kind of what will be demanded by clients.
Great. Pavel Sovička, some last words?
I think the COVID situation, digitalization of the whole society, apart from government, right? The government is not getting digital, but I think this is a great acceleration of the whole process. Maybe it's too hectic, but I believe it will bring a lot of opportunities for the companies to get better, to approach the different businesses in different ways, to consider what they can do better and reconsider the plans, as well as the sustainability. And we see it with our customers, that they really look at this as an opportunity and improvement, and just to support also the local economy when we look at Rohlík, Košík and others. Just from our perspective of logistics, one van of this last mile delivery of grocery saves 100 travels of families to do the shopping in the supermarkets. So this will bring additional sustainability, additional green effects, which we have not seen in the past, but will come with this change. So I see it as a opportunity which might be challenging, but without challenges, the life would be boring.
Yes, that's I want to add that the green growth is a great opportunity, and it could be a response to COVID-19 crisis. I also am happy that to hear that we will still continue to build new offices or industrial centers, so that we are not need to stuck at home on home offices. So I think we have reached the end I would like to thank to BCC for organizing this event, to our panelists for their excellent and very interesting views and experience, and also to the public and to our audience for their patience and for being with us. And I passing the word back to Sylvia.
So first of all, gentlemen, thank you so much for your inputs. I must honestly say it's a shame we don't have more time, because I would want to ask at least 10 more questions, and I'm certain that the viewers and guests would want to do the same. So I would definitely like to thank Jan Lehký for facilitating this great debate. Jan Lehký, sorry, as I said already, is from Kinsteller. I would like to say thank you to Pavel Streblov. I would like to say thank you to Daniel, and I want to say thank you to Pavel Sovička from Panatony as well. It was very fruitful conversation and debate. I would just like to say to our viewers that this all was recorded from the very beginning. And also I would like to say that this is, let's say, a very first project for BCC and for the embassy, because we would like to continue in general in green growth issues, and I'm sure we will provide more online and hopefully face-to-face events. So once again, thank you very much, and I hope to see you soon face-to-face. So stay safe and thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you very much.
Cheers.
Bye.